Those joining us on the stream, we'll just give that a second to boot in. Welcome to this meeting, the final one in this term, this training for the Performance Policy and Partnerships Committee. We have an apology, a late apology from Councillor Alan Arnold, and just to recognise that on Zoom we have Councillors Abbott, Crackett and Mrs Coote as well. Welcome along. I'm not aware of any other apologies. That's everyone. Before we start, in the absence of any items of public forum, Mr McFarr has something he'd like to update us on with regards to this coming Monday and the memorial service. Welcome, Richard.
Kia ora koutou. I just want to take 5 minutes of your time just to share some information which has already been released to the media today. Excuse me, sorry. Regarding Monday the 26th, the Memorial Day for the passing and mourning of Queen Elizabeth II. We'll be live streaming the Wellington State Service at the Civic Theatre. This is an opportunity to provide accessibility for our wider community to come together, to mourn together. It is not a civic event, I just want to clarify that. So it is a broadcast of another civic event, which means tikanga, the order of events and everything will all come out of the Wellington service. We won't have any input into that. We also won't have any speaking opportunities to keep it nice and clean and clear. It will be broadcast at 2 p.m. with a start. Doors open at 1:30 and to the building. There is a 1 minute silence, so there will be a lockout at the beginning. So anyone attending, if they're late, they will be locked out for that 1 minute silence. Other than that, it will be come and go as you please, free of admission. You don't need to register or anything like that. But there won't be an opportunity for any speeches or anything, as it will simply be the screen on the Civic. So we're not sure of the appetite for this, but I believe it's there'll be enough to fill the stalls, at least. So we're anticipating a stalls only event, just a place for people to come. So happy to answer any questions that anyone has for clarity.
Thank you, Richard. Questions, councillors? If not, commend you for making the opportunity available for people, and hopefully a little extra publicity from this exposure, or councillors may choose to join in as well on Monday.
Kia ora.
Thanks, Richard. Councillors, I neglected to get a mover and seconder for the apology from Councillor. I will move that. Moved Councillor Pottinger and seconded, Councillor Skelp. Thank you. Put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against, carried. Brings us to the report from the Invercargill Youth Council. And Katie and Kayla, welcome along. Councillors have had a chance to read through the report, but this is really your chance to speak to it, add anything that you feel is relevant, and see if the councillors have any questions.
We have a slideshow made up, so
excellent.
We'll just wait for that to come up. Should we do our introduction? Yeah. Hello, my name's Kayla Barker. And I'm Katie Dennis. We're from the Youth Council, and we were selected to go up to Wellington for 3 days for the Festival of the Future. Over these 3 days, we were able to attend a variety of workshops and meet lots of inspirational people. And yeah, so just adding on to what Kayla said, we got to meet, if someone could flick to the next slide. Awesome, thank you. We got to meet some pretty awesome people with some amazing stories. One thing I took away from it, from Dave actually, was finding your why and finding the reason as to why you do things. So I found that very motivating, very inspirational, and it's something that I will take and share with others and my peers. We also got to attend some workshops. One was the Sharesies workshop, where we got to learn about making investments in businesses. Yeah. So next slide, please.
What we want to do with what we got out of this festival, well, the first thing we did get out was we were able to talk to one of the people that we found at the festival, and she was one of the organisers of the events, and we managed to talk to her, and she asked what we would want the event to do, and we asked if we would love for it to come down to the Southland regions and have many workshops kind of in like that in Invercargill, because we definitely think the other people of the Youth Council who didn't get the same opportunity we did, and even people all over Invercargill and everywhere else, would definitely love this opportunity. So yeah.
Yeah, another thing that we would like to do is that while we were up there, we had a lot of talking and communication with other youth councils. One thing we found that would benefit the Southland the Invercargill Youth Council is the opportunity to hopefully do more meetings over a month. We currently have one a month, and we would love the opportunity to do maybe one every week or one every 2 weeks. This would benefit us hugely, as it gives us the opportunity to catch up more, make more happen in our community, and yeah, just truly have more opportunity to do things.
Thank you. With the suggestion of increasing your meeting frequency, certainly my personal opinion is a fortnight would be really good, but do you think you would have enough agenda topics to get down to weekly, or would there be a risk of time commitment, perhaps ruling some people out?
Personally, I find that it's not so much it's not so much about agenda topics, it's about getting out in the community and the youth council being seen, and we would love the opportunity to reach out, communicate with the community, get more people involved in the youth council, and yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like already in our hour and a half we do have once a month, we are pushing it with that time, and having an extra hour and a half once more time a month would be really beneficial to get out in the community.
So the other activities you're talking about is really outreach?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, truly.
Oh, cool. Okay. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Pottinger.
I guess it's not a question. I just support you that the increased frequency is a good thing. I mean, our council itself has gone from a 6-week cycle to a 4-week cycle, and we're getting shitloads more done. Sorry, more done.
He means lots. Technically, he's right.
Yeah. Another thing to mention was that I was at the election forum a couple of weeks ago. So if you have any questions or anything about that, I'm happy to try and answer.
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Skelt.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I was intrigued to look at the audience and the demographic of the audience. You got any thoughts around that? Because there possibly would have been, I think I counted maybe 6 under the age of 20 there.
Yes.
Some thoughts around that?
We truly did try to get lots of people there, youth there. I think I don't know, we just need to find a way to get more people involved, and I don't know, we had to come up with something that makes people interested in coming.
Well, you tried, and you had an interesting way of introducing the evening as well. Yeah. So, you know.
Yeah, we truly thought it was successful, so yeah.
Reverend Cook.
Oh, tēnā rā kōrua. With your consent, Mr. Chair, I want to say that you've come up against the very dilemma that we all face, even as more mature people, is trying to get people engaged in local government and what we do. The only time they want to feed back to us is when the rates go up or there's a pothole in their street. Well, that's how it seems like sometimes. So I do sympathise the fact that you struggle to get a lot of more people, but I do think that if you do increase your frequency of meetings to fortnightly, and some of those are outreach meetings that you're doing activities at other kura or at other locations where people may not be constricted for coming because they're not, you know, it's a more open space that you might start to build up a following, if I could put it that way, that rather than meetings which can seem to be a bit dry and process driven, and you know, do I really want to find out about the you know, the parking policy or whatever it is, but if you're talking about things such as the council talking about the smoking policy, come along and have your say. We've got our views, but we'd like to hear yours. Those sorts of opportunities. I wonder if that might work for you. But thank you for the strength of your input, because I have appreciated my interaction with you this year, and if we could clone you and make 300 or 400 more of you, perhaps the activation rate might be higher. But I do congratulate you and your fellow members on what you have done during your term, because I know it's not easy. Thank you.
Councillor Soper.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I was just going to ask the two representatives. I really think increasing the meeting frequency is a really good idea. Are you thinking in doing that of inviting in more outside speakers on topics that might generate some more interest in youth council activities?
Yeah, I feel like that would be quite a good idea, but it's not up to us, it's up to the people making the agenda and all that.
I
But
think we'd definitely appreciate all the people coming and talking to us.
definitely we would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Just thinking of the festival for the future you went to and the range of topics there that you might be able to usefully use as a bit of a lever. And I know we've discussed it before with other youth council representatives, the whole area of getting a wee bit more education for young people about how local government and central government functions and so forth. So I'm just thinking it might help to focus some of your extra meetings.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, councillors? If not, Katie and Kayla, thank you very much for taking the time to leave school early and come along this afternoon and present and speak to your report. We really appreciate it, and pleased that you had a good time at the Futures Forum.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, councillors, I'll move that we receive that report. Seconded by Councillor Soper. I'll put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Moves us on to the minutes of the Performance Policy and Partnerships Committee from August 9, if somebody wants to move. Councillor Scout, Reverend Cook. Questions or comments? If there are none, I'll put the motion all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Councillor Lewis, meeting of the Community Wellbeing Fund Committee from August 11.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move that these minutes be a true and accurate record, and in doing so I'd also like to do my traditional thank you very much to the staff who spent a lot of hours doing the preparation of these agendas. I'd like to do that in public forum so it's not lost in public excluded. Thank you.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Rabbit, I'll give that to you. Snowcombe. Any other questions or comments? If not, and thank you for those comments, Councillor Lewis. I'll put the motion all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. That brings us to the Dog and Animal Control Fund update. And Patricia, I'll give you a chance to pop up to the big green chair. Now, if it's red, people will consume it with confuse it with another show.
I was thinking.
And look at that little door you just stepped on.
Good afternoon, councillors. This report takes us back to the adoption of the annual plan when it was raised to our attention that there was some issues, that there was the potential for some issues with the Animal Control Fund. As we had said at the time, we were in the process of doing a review. That review has now completed. The scope of that review was to go back 5 years and look at the transactions that had gone through the Animal Control Fund, or the Dog Fund as it started off as, and recalculate whether we thought those were the correct transactions that went through there. As it has transpired, we believe that not all the transactions that should have gone through that fund in accordance with the legislation had happened. We have recalculated what that fund should have had through it, going right up to current day, and are proposing a number of changes be made so that we can bring the fund up to its current day. That includes making sure there is an appropriate allocation since when council stopped allocating corporate costs to activities, that there is the direct costs associated with servicing dogs and animal control that are included in that, and we have set a basis for making sure that allocation of costs can continue going forward. As a result, the 800,000 or 799,000. That was the estimated balance at the annual plan is much lower than that now. Based on the still to be audited amounts, the closing balance is now 573,000, with a forecast after the current financial year, the 22-23 financial year, that will be down to 573. For the 22 financial year, we're at 383,000, and that's because of the capital expenditure. How this fund works is a little bit different. It funds the cash balance of the activity, so we don't fund depreciation out of it, but we fund capital expenditure on these activities out of the fund. So it works a little bit different to the rest of council. So that's as if someone was working through the appendice 1 and 2. We don't take depreciation into account, but we do take capital expenditure. And in the last year and coming forward, there is to be some capital expenditure in this area, which will be funded from the fund. Is there any questions?
Thanks, Patricia. 2 questions from me, first of all. Firstly, are we sure now that the processes for how funds are allocated within that are correct?
Yes.
Have you had any conversation with the auditor on your way through for them to check the process, and are they comfortable, or is that something that you'll face when they're next with us?
We'll face that when they're next with us. This issue hadn't been raised by audit at any time coming through. It was something that we had identified ourselves and had a member of the public also identify it to us as well.
Thank you. Councillor Pottinger.
First question then, of audit. How come back in 2017, obviously audit wasn't interested in that? Because if you look at the 2017 figures, they are all over the place. So obviously it's not an audit thing.
I'm not sure why they wouldn't have looked at this in more detail.
Well, they seem to count our staplers and pencil sharpeners, but
from the materiality perspective, it probably was below the materiality limit.
Wow. Okay, and the second question was, do these at the annual plan time back in June, we were aware that there was about 1,000 outstanding registration fees not paid or overdue, or so do they get written off, or are they included in this as a potential income, or what happens with that?
They're included in this as potential income, though if any write-off was to happen in subsequent years, that would go through as an expense. So
okay,
they would
right,
net out over time.
So that is actually included, even though we haven't got it. It's in the figures.
Yes.
Thanks.
Reverend Cook, and then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Patricia, when we were talking about fees, way back when, because we were unsure of what the proper balance was, we ended up not adjusting fees. Is that going to have a negative impact at the end of this year? In other words, is the operation of this going to cost slightly more than we are going to take in registrations, or are we unsure of that at this point?
I think we would be unsure of that at this point.
We'll have a better feel with it in the next couple of months, what it's going to look like.
Yeah, but potentially we could be a little bit short on our income compared to what our outgoings may be, because we weren't sure whether we needed to raise.
That is a risk.
Thank you.
And if that occurred, council would have to accept responsibility for it because it held back the rate, knowing that there was an element of doubt, but it's not likely to be, one would hope, a massive figure.
Oh, absolutely, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to get it into my head what one potential implication of us not having made that decision might be.
Appreciate that. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Just the issue of the CAPEX expenditure, which is now apportioned to the new fund, or the readjusted fund. So that's had a movement downwards. I think it referred to a differential of about 235,000. So that means that we've spent roughly $250,000 on some capital expenditure in 2021-22 that wasn't apportioned to this fund, so that left it artificially high. So you've adjusted that. So that then begs the reverse question: is at some stage we did apportion $250,000 to somewhere else that now should have some relief.
Indeed, so the balance is coming through the net debt accounts on the other side, which we believe is the general net debt account.
So that would be through borrowing.
Not through borrowing, through the net debt account.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
No further questions? Well, councillors, I'll take the first three recommendations for a start, which is to receive the update. Note that as a result of a review, it's been concluded that historically the fund was not reflected in the full cash impact of activity, and as a result, recalculations in line with the attachment, the committee should recommend be approved. So would somebody be prepared to move? Councillor Soper, Councillor Skelp. It's open for questions or comments. If there are none, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you for that. The other two are for the committee to recommend to council, so this will come up next week, and 4 and 5 as a result of the review necessary to recalculate the fund to correctly reflect the operations of the activity, and authorising council officers to make the necessary changes as outlined in the report, so that the annual report reflects the correct closing balance of the fund and corporate net debt account. Councillor Amundsen and Reverend Cook. Questions or comments? There are none. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you for that. Thanks, Patricia. Thanks, Gillian. Trudy, that brings us to the appointment of a District Licensing Committee Commissioner at the end of a triennium. This is usual practice which allows us to conduct liquor licensing business through until the appointment of a replacement, and in this instance we would be naming Councillor Amundsen, who's the current committee chair, as that commissioner.
That's correct.
I'm prepared to move.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? Councillor Clark.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I don't understand, so it might be just some clarification. Yep. So these commissioners require some level of training?
Nope, not in this instance.
Have a process they go through?
Through you, Mr. Chair, when we do have commissioner, if you had an appointment of a commissioner who was in the community, there's certain standards that are outlined in the report that we expect from that commissioner, and they would go through training. But in this case, by appointing Councillor Amundsen, we would be she already has that training and that ability from her work as the chair of the District Licensing Committee.
No, I wasn't suggesting that she wasn't trained. I was just suggesting that where do future commissioners come from, because I know that in the last term we've had people indicate that they wanted to train and either haven't trained.
So those are resource consent hearing
motions,
which is a different process, and they too absolutely need training.
Yep.
And we will be short of that heading into the new term, so there are some new councillors who are going to find a pretty steep learning curve. Yep. Councillor Kidd.
Yeah, a couple of questions, Mr. Chair. The $624 a day seems a heck of a lot of money.
It's up to.
Up to?
It's an hourly rate.
Yeah, but I see here if it's a part day or part thereof, it's $78 an hour, but $624 a day is right up there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, apologies, Councillor, that we do already have to pay that already for the chair of the committee. So the expense is not an increase on what is set already. And it's in line with other local authorities across New Zealand. In fact, some local authorities are looking at increasing it.
Generally an hour a day, is it, Rebecca?
Generally it's an hour a fortnight that I get paid for that role at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say it was $624 a day. That's just about as much as the Prime Minister gets per day. Yeah, I just wonder, has that hourly rate or daily rate gone up over the years, has it?
To my knowledge, it's stayed quite static for some time, and it is in line with other local authorities when staff checked. And as I say, some local authorities are looking at increasing it for their commissioners.
No, I'm just thinking because I was on the District Licensing Committee many years ago, and we didn't get paid at all.
It was a different act.
Different act, was it?
Yes. This is under the 2012 Act.
Yeah. Okay. No, I was just going to say I'd put my hand up and do it for nothing. So I believe I've got the necessary qualifications to do it, but it's up to you.
Okay. Any further questions? There's three recommendations there, which I'm prepared to move. Is there a seconder? Reverend Cook. Put that, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you for that.
Do I need to abstain from that vote or
Might be
not
an
vote
idea.
on that one?
So declare an interest and
Declare an
abstain.
interest, yeah.
Thank you. We can note that. Brings us through to the activity report, Trudy.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I will take the report as read and open the floor to any questions.
So the adjustment to hours with the Civic Admin building, no issues that we're aware of at present, Trudy?
None.
Great. The questions, councillors? Councillor Clark, thank you.
Just in relation to the upcoming Monday, and I might have missed the meeting, so I'm not sure this has been resolved. So when we have the dedicated day on Monday, are we opening the pool and the library?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the library will be closed on the Monday, and the pools will be operating on normal public holiday hours, so restricted hours.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you for that. Councillor Amundsen.
Just a comment, really. I attended the Welcoming Communities events, the event at the library, the Human Library, and the tree planting on Saturday, and it was great to see so many people out, and it was a lovely day. So, and some very enthusiastic new citizens planting some trees, and very proud to be able to say that they can pop back there in the future and sit under the tree that they've planted. Great work.
Thank you for that. Other questions or comments? If not, would somebody like to move that the report is received? Councillor Lewis, seconded. Councillor Scout, thank you. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Councillors, before going into public excluded, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for the chance to chair these committee meetings over the period since it was formed. We've really been the Ministry of everything apart from infrastructure through the long-term plan and annual plan process, and the weight of the other work that we have to carry out. There have been a substantial number of extraordinary meetings that have been called, and I thank you very much for your perseverance with that, and thank the staff for the work that's gone into making those happen. There have been questions asked through the term, and the staff have come back with the answers. It's not something that can happen straight away because we want the right answer, not the quickest answer. And if it takes a couple of weeks, as long as it's accurate, that's fine. So thank you for that. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say thank you for your chairmanship over this time. But I'd also like to make a quick comment. Since there will not be another performance policy partnership meeting in which the community wellbeing fund will be mentioned, I'd like to make special thanks to the community members of the. We have had another meeting since then, so I'm not too sure where that agenda will come up to. But in case it doesn't come up,
It'll come to the next meeting of this committee.
But I thought there may not be one.
Not this committee, or the new one.
No, we have community members that come unheralded, unpaid to some of these committees, and I'd like to thank them.
Thank you. There being no further business in public, I'll move that we go into public excluded for the confirmation of the minutes and the receiving of minutes from the Community Wellbeing Fund and the Technology One contract variation for the reasons as outlined. Seconded by Councillor Kett. I'll put that all in favour.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you for that, and thank you for those who've joined us on the stream.